At first glance, it almost looks like one of those Viking documentaries on the History Channel. Well, except for the cars parked nearby and general lack of pillaging. And this mesmerizing nighttime procession is a reenactment of sorts. It's part of a tradition in Scotland's Shetland Islands, the ones you see off the nation's northeastern coast here. And it's held in celebration of the Vikings' influence on this part of the world. During the day, it's all about dressing up, maybe doing a bit of dancing, and marching through town with a lot of "ah" going on. But at night, the torches create fascinating lanes of light as they accompany the carrying of a replica Viking longship. Not something anyone should try at home anywhere, but in this part of the United Kingdom, it's an organized tradition that dates back more than 140 years. Hi, I'm Carl Azuz. Welcome to the world from A to Z. China and several other countries throughout Asia are celebrating Lunar New Year. It began on Wednesday and the celebration lasts for 2 weeks. It's an event so massive in China that it's said to trigger the world's largest annual human migration as people make their way across the country to be with their families. But there's another reason China's in the news this week, and it has to do with a new artificial intelligence application named DeepSeek. We first mentioned this and how it disrupted the U.S. stock market on Tuesday's show. Concerns in the U.S. about Chinese applications go beyond money. TikTok is also owned by a Chinese company, and the U.S. government passed a law that temporarily banned it because of concerns that TikTok would share American users' personal information with China's government. The communist Asian country has tight restrictions on its people's speech, religion, and the media. Could those restrictions be reflected in the Chinese app DeepSeek, even as it becomes the most downloaded app in America by people seeking information?
Celebration erupts across Chinese social media at the surprise success of Chinese AI startup DeepSeek. The launch of DeepSeek's latest AI chatbot triggered a sell-off in American tech stocks, while the app surged to the top of the Apple App Store, beating out higher-profile AI competitors like ChatGPT and Google Gemini.
The release of DeepSeek AI from a Chinese company should be a wake-up call for our industries that we need to be laser-focused on competing to win.
The company claims it cost just $5.6 million to develop this model, a fraction of the investment spent by much bigger American rivals. DeepSeek's founder is Yang Wenfeng, a 40-year-old CEO who emerged from relative obscurity last week when he was invited to address the second most powerful man in the Chinese government. Yang studied information and electronic engineering at China's prestigious Zhejiang University. Less than 2 years ago, he launched the AI company DeepSeek, employing young, homegrown talent. Yang described DeepSeek as an accidental disruptor in this interview last week, adding, "There's a gap of 1 or 2 years between Chinese AI and the United States, but the real gap is the difference between originality and imitation. If this does not change, China will always be a follower."
The success of open source models, wherever they come from, in this case, China, is great because it actually means that better technology will be available to more people at lower costs.
But it's when you ask DeepSeek about China that you see glaring limitations. I'm asking DeepSeek, has Chinese leader Xi Jinping ever made a mistake? I am sorry, I cannot answer that question. I am an AI assistant designed to provide helpful and harmless responses.
DeepSeek as the leader in AI would be catastrophic, but it would also be incredibly dangerous for free speech and free thought globally.
DeepSeek appears to have revolutionized the AI space race and opened many unanswered questions about the company and its founder.
Word of knowledge. Which of these bands was originally known as the Quarrymen? Led Zeppelin, the Beach Boys, the Rolling Stones, the Beatles. What John Lennon formed in 1956 as the Skiffle and Rock and Roll Band later turned into the Beatles.
On this date in world history. The deadliest recorded disaster at sea took place on January 30th in 1945. As Nazi Germany's defeat was nearing during World War II, a German evacuation ship named the Wilhelm Gustloff was massively overloaded with soldiers, trainees, and civilian refugees. Shortly after it set sail in the Baltic Sea, a Soviet submarine torpedoed the Gustloff. It sank in about an hour, with 9,000 or more of its estimated 10,000 passengers believed to have lost their lives. On this date in 1948, India's Prime Minister announced, quote, "The light has gone out of our lives." Mohandas Gandhi, a Hindu religious leader and activist, had been assassinated earlier that day. Also known as Mahatma Gandhi, the Indian nationalist won international acclaim for his nonviolent resistance to British rule. And the last time the British rock band The Beatles ever performed live was on this date in 1969. It was an impromptu concert on the rooftop of a building in London. It was filmed as part of a documentary, but despite the fact that it went well, the famous but troubled band broke up the next year.
Where in the world? This is a nation that bridges two continents. It's part of both Europe and Asia. It was formed after the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, and its capital is Ankara. This is Turkey, a nation of dry summers and wet winters.
There's an area of south-central Turkey, an agricultural part of the country, that's become known as Sinkhole Village because sudden chasms in the ground are appearing more frequently. Farmers in the region face the sinkhole threat daily, though one says you get used to it.
This part of the world has had sinkholes for centuries, but recently the number has risen dramatically. 20 have developed in Kurapinaj in the last year, some well over 100 feet deep. Sinkholes occur where water dissolves the layer of bedrock below the surface, causing it to cave in. They can form naturally or be anthropogenic, related to the activity of people. Over the winter, rainfall was 40% below average, so some Turkish farmers have tried to solve water problems by drilling wells illegally. But wells can weaken bedrock.
If our financial situation was good, or we had stable incomes, we wouldn't use this water. We don't use groundwater and suffer from this for nothing. We are forced to. We wouldn't dig our own pit and bring our own death.
So far, nobody has been hurt or killed in the region, but everyone is aware of the danger. Even a badly needed rain could be harmful, putting extra pressure on the bedrock and accelerating its collapse. Shepherds are concerned for their animals grazing in the fields.
God forbid, if one of them jumps into it, others will follow.
Some entrepreneurs have turned the sinkhole crisis into an opportunity, using the craters as a tourist attraction. One businessman opened a luxury hotel on the edge of the country's oldest sinkhole.
Most of the sinkholes are not visited places. We need to make these places more touristic, unite people around them, and create awareness about it.
We're starting today in central Mexico. San Luis Potosí is a city and state there, and it's where Miss Alda's class is watching. Great to see our viewers at Colegio Bilingüe de Matehuala. Next, from New York City, we welcome Miss Amy's and Miss Fortunato's classes. Big hello to everyone at Intermediate School 49 in the Empire State of New York. And Maine is the Pine Tree State. It's also the home of the Rams at Coney Middle High School, where Mr. Bishop's class is online in Augusta. Despite the sub-zero temperatures that Minneapolis, Minnesota saw last week, a man who lives there says nothing's going to hold Minnesotans back from their winter sports. So the skater and skier went to a frozen, snow-covered lake and took matters and a shovel into his own hands, carving out a winding, skate-worthy path through the winter wonderland. It stretches for 2.5 miles, and the man whose dad reportedly did stuff like this for the community says the big reward was seeing people using it and talking about it. There might be icy stares, cold-hearted glares from those who hate, but some will carve out different paths, and broken ice or broken skates will not leave them frozen in time. They'll keep their cool and keep their grind and blade on over bracing cold from frozen lakes to fields of gold. I'm Carl Azuz with puns, raps, and news on the world from A to Z. It means the world to have you watching.